once fiction becoming fact in rooms across the land, as we hold tomorrow's promise right here in our hands. Ultraviolet dreams lighting up the way, technology and nature coming out to play. What the eye can't see is changing everything. UV light is more than we imagined it could bring. Beyond the visible, beyond what we can touch, there's a world of possibility, meaning oh so much. This is just the beginning of what life can do. Ultraviolet dreams lighting up the way.
All right. My name is Hank Balch. Welcome to a special live stream interview on transmission control. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Dr. Sarah Simmons, the Senior Director of Science at Xenex, for an important conversation on how UV technology is transforming the fight against pathogen transmission in our hospitals. We'll also dive into the regulatory requirements and recent changes around this technology. This is a timely discussion, especially for those of you that are attending the AHE Exchange 25, which this is where the Xenex team is this morning in booth, or if you're heading out next week to APIC in Phoenix. If you're evaluating UV, if you're looking for science-backed strategies to improve your disinfection process and reduce the risk of pathogen transmission, you don't want to miss this. Welcome to the show, Dr. Simmons. Let's get started today.
Sounds great.
If you've been in the space at all and you've been thinking about UV, you've probably seen or heard the name Xenex. I've actually been down to headquarters down in San Antonio a couple of months ago to meet the team. But for folks who may be not familiar with who you are, or where you sit in this wide industry of UV, what's the background? How long have you guys been in the market? And yeah, just give us a little background about the company as well.
Sure. So Xenex started in 2010 selling our UV robots, and we actually released our newest FDA authorized version in 2023. Xenex is the market leader for UV devices worldwide, and over 1,000 hospitals have implemented our technology to improve their cleaning and disinfection processes.
So like I said, kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
So what sets you guys apart? Obviously, you're the market leader, but what else?
So the biggest thing that sets us apart is the FDA authorization of our device. The FDA's interest in the UV industry really started because they were concerned about some claims about efficacy, safety, and compatibility for these devices with other medical equipment. What makes Xenex unique is that we were the first company to receive this authorization, and we really set the bar for other companies in the industry. Any company looking to sell a UV device to a hospital where that device is going to be used around other medical equipment needs to have received this authorization. What also makes us unique is that our device uses a different kind of lamp to make a different kind of UV light. We use a pulsed xenon lamp, and those kinds of lamps have immediate on time. You don't have any warm up for these lamps. And this means that we can instantly start killing the bacteria that are on surfaces. This gives our new LightStrike Plus model of device rapid 2-minute treatment times, so we can quickly take care of rooms and get a new patient in.
So, Doctor, there's going to be a lot of healthcare leaders there today at Exchange 25. There's going to be a lot of infection preventionists and healthcare leaders there next week at APIC. For those folks who are kind of exploring UV technology, there's a lot of information obviously out there from different companies, different organizations, specifically zeroing in on the IP piece. What should IPs know about UV technology today?
I think the reason that we are interested in UV technology is the same now as it was when the company first started. The risk that we have from manual cleaning has always been there. Infection preventionists have always known that bacteria get left behind. Our colleagues in environmental services do a fantastic job, but these organisms are a constant invisible risk to our patients. We can't clean what we can't see. There was a really good revised systematic review that came out just last year looking at prior room occupancy risk, which is the infection risk associated with the patient before you being colonized or infected with the bacteria. It found that globally, that risk goes up 145% if the last patient was colonized or infected, but that really ranges from as low as 57% for extended spectrum beta-lactamase organisms to as high as 353% for Acinetobacter species. So these things we carry around with us all the time that get left behind are a constant hazard to our patients. I think we also all got a crash course in UV during COVID when everyone was scrambling to find anything to keep our environments clean. A lot of technologies entered the market at that point, and I think what we found is that not all UV tech was created equal. Now in 2025, we have safety standards and efficacy standards for these devices that technologies need to meet. And that's giving us a more confident ground to work on. We also want to make sure we understand that UV is a bundled approach. It is not a replacement for any of the manual cleaning processes that we're doing. And we also need to look at enhanced steps as bacteria develop resistance to the disinfectants that we're using. We can't rely on our existing chemistry forever. We're going to need to take extra steps. UV also doesn't replace the training that we need to do for our environmental services staff or any of the quality control steps that we take for manual cleaning processes like ATP or the fluorescent markers. And I think from a UV program perspective, not just the devices itself, teaming up with your environmental services department is the most important thing. The best programs we have ever seen is when IP and EVS are in alignment for the goals of their program. What do we want to kill? And how are we going to do the deployment to get it done?
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme when we're talking to infection preventionists these days. It's like whatever department you're trying to help, collaborate with them and support them, because that critical insight that IPs have and the ability for them to do the research, to get the white papers, to look at the science, and then bring that in to the operational side where we have departments, such as environmental service, and that's kind of where we're going to next. These guys and gals are out there every single day fighting dirty, like we like to say here, and but they need technology in order to do their jobs. I really appreciate what you said previously, Doc, about this is a bundled solution. We're not replacing anything. There's a lot that goes into doing what we need to do, but technology has to be a part of that. So how does Xenex in particular support these EVS teams in making this happen?
When a hospital is implementing a LightStrike program, the first thing we're going to do is have our customer success team reach out to them, because we want to have your robot ready to go the second you take it out of the crate. So your device is going to come preloaded with all of the rooms that you have in your facility and their protocols, all the logins for your devices, but we've also created an operating plan in advance. We've gotten agreement on which organisms are you concerned about, which units are we trying to attack those on, and we've set goals for your device. How many rooms per day is this device going to do? Or in operating rooms, how many ORs each night are these devices going to do? Your AE, your account executive, also comes on site to do on-site training for every single staff member on every single shift who's going to be using this. We also really like to go around and introduce the robot to the clinical staff on the units where it's going to be implemented, so they don't go, what is this thing?
Right.
They already know what's happening. And we've seen that make our programs more successful because the staff start asking for the robot to be used before the next patient comes in. We also know that EVS teams tend to have a lot of staff turnover. And another nice way that Xenex supports that is the robot is super easy to train on. You can either have a super user at your facility to train new staff members who come on. That's one of our best practices. We also have complete training available via the Enlight portal, Or you can have a representative from Xenex come on site and do the training for your teams when they're there. A nice thing that hospitals have seen once they implement a LightStrike program is enhanced engagement with their EVS staff. You're giving them a really cool tool. They get a robot that they get to go push around and make the environment clean, and they get to feel like they're doing the best they can for all of their patients. Another nice thing we do is ongoing support. The SOP that you start with might not be the SOP that works for you forever. You might have a new bacteria come into your hospital, or an outbreak might happen. Xenex has clinical staff on call 24/7 for our hospitals. If something goes wrong and you need to know how to use your robot to combat it, we can help you with that. We can update your SOP if it's a longer term issue, or we can help you with acute programs to handle something that's happening rapidly.
And that's so important, that dynamic piece of the fight that we're in, right? Like the bugs are not staying the same. The
Yep.
staff is not staying the same many times. The priorities change. And so to have a partner that's willing to, on the front end, in the implementation, and then in maintaining this equipment and this partnership, I think that's just a critical piece of the puzzle. Speaking about the equipment in particular, though, what kind of features are we talking about? Like, we say robot, and that can bring a lot of different kind of bells and whistles to mind for people. But what do the built-in features look like specific to this device that focuses on staff safety in particular?
Everyone's first question about safety for these devices is, what if someone accidentally gets exposed to the light? Our systems have a cone that has 2 different types of motion detection features that watches the doors of the room. If those cones detect motion, the device is going to turn off. The other risk you have is, as someone is leaving the room, if they don't get out quick enough, the device might turn on. Our device watches the room to make sure that the staff member has left before it turns on. If it sees you're still in there, it's not going to turn the light on. There's also a cone outside that alerts patients and staff that the device is operating within the room, and provides a countdown timer for the staff who are using the device, so they know how long is left in this cycle and how long do I have left to go get the linens I need for the bed, or maybe get other equipment I need to finish the room once the device has done its job.
Yeah, so the doctor is saying cone, but I want you guys to think about, like, if R2D2 was crammed into a cone, like that's what we're talking about here. Very smart cone
Yep.
that can do those kinds of things that you're referencing, right? That actually look out and identify, hey, something is not correct with the parameters that need to be in place to keep the patient, or to keep the staff safe, and therefore we're going to cut it. Really, really great call out. Let's talk about overall environmental cleanliness. Obviously, your Exchange 25 today, there's going to be a lot of conversations about this high-level organizational, environmental, and room-specific cleanliness. How does LightStrike contribute to that in particular?
So, like I said before, it's a bundled approach, not a replacement. We still need those manual cleaning steps to happen. Manual cleaning is actually key to the success of a UV system. Manual cleaning removes the oils and the soiling and the dust and dirt. They can actually inhibit the effectiveness of a UV device. UV devices are there to kill the bacteria. We're not there to break through the dirt and the grime and get the bacteria underneath. Those will actually absorb the UV light, and the bacteria under are just going to hang out and be there for your next patient. We need those steps. We are a combined effort. We also need the physical cleaning to remove those things to prevent the buildup of both wet and dry biofilms. Biofilm formation is also an issue for UV systems because we can only kill the stuff that's on the top. And in biofilms, those things are already dead. Those are the protective layer of the biofilm. So you're just reinforcing this film with more protection. We need that physical removal so that we can get the stuff underneath that's actually causing the hazard for our patient. A lot of the infection transmission we see in the healthcare environment is due to contaminated surfaces or the hands of healthcare workers that got contaminated from touching these surfaces. LightStrike's ability to kill those bacteria specifically reduces that transmission risk.
A new phrase to me, which it shouldn't have been, but I guess I just wasn't paying attention, is this idea of pathogen reduction. And that's a key phrase, obviously, in all of this UV tech space. Um, Talk to us about what specific techniques Xenex has brought to this question of maximizing that pathogen reduction, specific with the LightStrike device.
One of the key things we have to balance is the need to kill these bacteria to reduce the pathogens, but also get patients back into rooms. A lot of healthcare is for profit. We only make money when a patient's in the bed. So we want to find this balance between reducing the pathogen level to a load that is clinically meaningful, but also not spending a ton of time doing it. So could UV systems deliver a 6-log reduction, sterilization of a room? Sure, technically possible. You're going to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours doing that. That's not meaningful. You can't treat enough rooms in a day with that process for it to make a real difference. What we're aiming for is a 2-log reduction, a 99% reduction in those organisms, which is going to reduce it to a level that transmission risk is reduced. The way we do this is by looking at proximity. The UV systems are going to work better when they're closer to the surfaces that we're trying to treat. And we found the best way is 3 positions in a room, both in ORs or in patient rooms. This gets us close to all the high-touch surfaces that we're trying to treat, and we can have these really rapid, as low as 2-minute treatment cycles and get that room turned over really quickly. Having multiple positions also allows us to flip over high-touch items. Some of the things that our patients are constantly in contact with, like call buttons, remotes, and pillows, have 2 sides, and the bacteria doesn't just pick one side to be on. When we're doing treatment in patient rooms, we treat one side of the bed. All these items are laid out. We'll then flip them over to a different space and run the device on the other side of the bed, so everything has gotten treated. Another thing we like to recommend is equipment. Portable medical equipment is a very common vector in the healthcare space. Things like mobile workstations, vital signs machines, and wheelchairs can all be treated with the LightStrike Plus device. Any empty room can be used. Place the device in the middle, orient the equipment around it in a circle, quick 2-minute cycle, turn everything around 180, zap it again, and that equipment is ready to go for the next patient.
So, Doctor, you mentioned earlier kind of the concept that time is money. There's also a concept that money is money. And when folks are looking at this UV technology, and especially like when they're bringing it back from conferences like this, and they're bringing it back to their administrators and saying, listen, guys, I've got the solution to our problem, the bundled part of the solution, the technology piece that we need to start attacking this in our facility. The immediate question is around funding. What would you say to help folks secure investment that's needed to bring this kind of technology into their space?
I think one of the challenges that we have is these departments have a lot of competing priorities for their funding, and there isn't a direct ROI that we can make for these devices. I mean, sure, we're reducing the bacteria on your surfaces. The argument you have to make is a clinical one, that these are proven to reduce these organisms. This is going to make a cleaner environment for our patient. And if you look at the straight financials, if you consider that a LightStrike robot can do at least 20 rooms per day, and this robot is good for at least 5 years, that comes out to about $3 per room. It's really a cost-effective method for globally reducing the bioburden in your healthcare space. And we know that all hospitals have unique situations. Our account executives can work with you to find a funding solution that works for you. What's also nice is we have a program for hospitals that want to upgrade to newer approved devices. We have a trade-in program for hospitals that have already implemented UV technology, either with older models of LightStrike or with competing low-pressure mercury vapor systems. We will give you a trade-in credit on those devices if you want to buy a LightStrike Plus. This has been used by tons of hospitals to keep up to date on the best available UV technology in the market.
Speaking of the technologies in the market, obviously there's a lot of products that are out in this space, inside and outside of healthcare, that are coming with this UV tag. When it comes to regulations around UV products, where does the industry stand? and how are they meeting the standards today?
So in 2023, the FDA created a category called whole room microbial reduction device. As I said earlier, Xenex was the first to receive this designation. We set the bar for the rest of the industry. And after that, any device that wants to sell into the healthcare space that is treating a whole room with UV light where medical devices are present needs to have this clearance from the agency to legally market to the healthcare space. Before this, there was no reliable way to compare the performance across devices. It was kind of the Wild West of claims, and hospitals were uncertain what to do. There was no one else out there double checking our work, essentially. So now that we have this category, hospitals have a way of assuring that what they're buying has been proven. We were really excited for the announcement last week that another UV company has received 510K clearance. We think it is awesome that other companies are meeting this standard and hospitals are going to have more proven technology available to them. We're excited in the future for more companies to join Xenex as an FDA authorized device.
Yeah, so speaking of double checking your work, one of the questions that always comes up around this technology is how do I validate that this machine is doing what it was claimed and created to do in my rooms? Can you talk us through how that efficacy testing and that validation is done?
Yes, a lot of our FDA submission had to do with microbiology data. Just like you said, validating that it does what I say it does.
Right.
The first step was laboratory testing, bench testing against 18 different bacteria. These are bacteria that are common to the healthcare environment so that we know that the things we find in the hospital, the device is going to be able to get rid of. Then we had to do testing in a simulated use environment. This is important because in a lab, I'm testing on a glass slide in a controlled environment at a set distance. In the real world, we're on different types of medical equipment with different textures and made of different materials. They're also at different orientations to the device. Some of these may be shadowed at different positions when the robot is in the room. So we want to make sure that what I measure on the bench actually translates into the real world. And then we took that data to an actual hospital. This was important because we wanted to test against what's really out there. And we talked earlier about the soiling and the stuff that gets left behind. We've got to make sure that we can overcome those natural barriers to the effectiveness of a UV system. So that was the three-part evidence we provided to the agency. And this demonstrated that we can get 99% reductions in most organisms in as little as 2 minutes.
So, doctor, let's talk about the risk of not doing something. As a public health expert yourself, as you look at the traditional liquid cleaning methods that have historically brought us to where we are today in healthcare, what's the risk of not moving past that and not going to this new kind of technology that we're talking about around UV?
I think my biggest concern is the rapid emergence that we see of not only new pathogens, but our existing pathogens developing new resistance mechanisms. The antibiotic pipeline is terrifyingly sparse. Our treatment options are becoming more and more limited, and this means that prevention is going to be even more important as we look at ways to keep our patients safe. We need our cleaning processes to rise to the challenge that these new organisms are going to present to us. One of the nice things about using a UV program is that UV is universal. It is universally effective. It is just a question of dose. Even for really UV resistant organisms like Deinococcus radiodurans, our robot can kill it. You just got to give us enough time. Now, it is true that many bacteria have repair mechanisms that they will be able to use against some types of UV systems. However, the intense light that comes from LightStrike Plus devices means that we can overwhelm those repair mechanisms and we're able to kill any bacteria that are on surfaces.
I want to hear more about those repair mechanisms sometimes. Don't let me forget to ask you.
I will geek out with you anytime you want.
Okay. All right, last question here. Clearly, there's a lot of power that's packed inside this LightStrike device. What's the biggest impact it can have in the hospital setting today?
When a hospital implements LightStrike, we really encourage them to work with our customer success team and our team of epidemiologists to develop the program that is right for them. There is no blanket answer to how to use UV technology. I will give a caution, though. A lot of hospitals only want to use the device in their isolation rooms, and that really limits the utilization of your system. When you're only looking for isolation rooms, your robot's moving around your hospital a lot, and the time it's spent moving is time it's not spent zapping. We also miss rooms this way. When we're only looking at isolation patients, we're missing those patients who are silently colonized or patients that we just haven't identified a positive clinical culture for yet. What we recommend instead is to target units for each device, select 1 or 2 units where it's going to live. That's its home. And it's going to do every discharge and transfer every single time. This is the best way to globally reduce the bioburden on your units and minimize the turnaround time because you're not having to wait for the device to come to you. It's always there on the unit. If you're not sure where to target your devices, our customer success team can help. We are happy to do an analysis for you that shows here's the number of robots you have, here's your discharge and transfer distribution throughout your facility, here's where we think you can get the biggest bang for your buck. And that's all covered when you purchase the robot. These are not extra for-fee services. This is all part of the package that you get with Xenex. Another place hospitals like to use their devices is in operating rooms. Sometimes they will take the systems that they have on their inpatient units, and after discharges and transfers are done at the end of the day, they'll take them down to the operating rooms and treat them for terminal cleans at night. Alternatively, some hospitals purchase a device specifically to dedicate to surgical services. When we're doing these terminal cleans at night, the rapid 2-minute treatment cycles mean we're getting a room done every 6 minutes. We can cover tons of ORs with a single device overnight. But those rapid cycles also mean that we can treat between cases. Now, this won't work for every single case. That will be too much of a disruption to our OR throughput. But for specific high-risk cases, we can take that extra 6 minutes and reduce the bioburden in that room before our high-risk patient comes in. These are the 2 main ways that hospitals will implement Xenex. But as I said before, there is no one universal way. We are able to customize plans for our hospitals. The way we might approach MRSA in an ICU is completely different from how we would approach C. difficile in a nursing home. A hospital's goals are unique to them, and the Xenex team is here to help them accomplish them with a customized plan that meets their needs.
All right, Dr. Sarah Simmons, thank you for the incredible insights, giving me some flashbacks to my freshman year in microbiology lab. Okay, but it's good stuff because it didn't stick the first time. So hopefully now it's going to stick a little bit better. So it's really clear from this conversation that UV is much more than a trend. It is and should be a vital piece of future for healthcare environments. Anyone who's there in Columbus this week for Exchange 25, make sure to swing by and meet in person Dr. Sarah Simmons. Dr. Sarah Simmons there at the Xenex booth. And for all of our listeners that are tuning in, if you want a deeper dive, don't miss the 6-part educational series that we've got available on the transmission control LinkedIn page. It's packed with science, strategy, and solutions every infection preventionist should know. My name is Hank Balch. Thank you all for tuning in again on Transmission Control. Infection stops where information starts. We'll see y'all again soon.